welcome to episode 91 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Off Topic, Game Journal, whatever have you podcast. My name's Mike Sollosi, Monsoon on the boards, and I'm here with two retro veterans to talk about a sequel to a game we talked about September, and I think I'll say talked about one more time just to make it four. So with me today is Peter Triezenberg.
Hey everybody, I have Fury on the boards.
And also Alana Hagues.
Hey everyone, I've Diving Falcons on the boards.
Now, Peter, Alana, you and I were both on a podcast in September of last year talking about Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, the completely bonkers visual novel for Vita and PC, made by Spike Chunsoft, and about mostly murdering teenagers and also, mystery and despair and hope and all kinds of odd metaphors. And the three of us all liked that game a lot, right? Am I remembering this correctly?
You're remembering correctly. I'd say it's one of the better. Yeah.
Right, it's a very memorable, very weird, unusual game, and it has a sequel that came out, I think in the United States it came out in the same year that the first one did, Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair, and that's what we're here to talk about today. We liked Danganronpa 1 so much, we decided to record an episode about the sequel, but because of scheduling issues and other things, it is coming almost a year after that first episode. But we've all finished it. We all have thoughts about Danganronpa 2. And it's a little different from the first game. I think it goes into a little bit of a science fiction realm, a little bit further than Danganronpa 1 does. And it's
fair to say.
Sure, and its twists are of a similar but different nature to the twists at the end of the first game. But okay, without going into endgame spoilers, because we'll get to those later, starting with you, Peter, what are your overall thoughts on Danganronpa 2, especially since you played it relatively shortly after Danganronpa 1?
So, playing Danganronpa 2 right after playing the first one is kind of an interesting experience, because the start of the game does its best to invoke memories of the first game. It tries really hard. It has almost an identical setup where it introduces Hope. The new protagonist, Hajime, is on his way to Hope's Peak Academy, and he wakes up in a weird situation. This time it's a tropical island, but there's a new group of kids, and it's off-putting how similar it is at first. Very quickly, the curtain gets pulled back. Monokuma shows up and starts doing his Monokuma thing. And then things start to get weird.
Right. Well, it's... I would argue that Danganronpa gets weird very, very early and maybe even more consistently weird than the first game.
As soon as Monami shows up?
Yeah. In a way, it feels too similar to the first game, at least at the beginning. I agree with that. But once it shows more and more of its story cards, and you get more out of these characters, I think it goes in a significantly different direction eventually.
It also does, and it also ends up subverting those expectations in really interesting ways. It plays off what you're expecting coming off of the first game.
Right, I'd basically agree with that. Now, Alana, same question to you. What are your sort of overall thoughts about the game without going into endgame spoilers yet?
So initially, very much like Peter, so I had a bit of a break after 1 because the Danganronpa games are quite heavy and there's a lot to get your head around, so I needed a bit of a break. And so I dived into Danganronpa 2 maybe 5 or 6 months afterwards. And like Peter and like Mike, you both said, it does feel unsettlingly similar, not least because of the fact that one character sounds very similar to another character from the first game, and another character looks very similar to another character in the first game. And obviously, your brain is going wildfire trying to figure out these two. And then, like you say, the carpet is completely pulled out from under your feet within the first couple of hours, the first chapter especially, considering that you spend this time trying to figure out who this character is. You're thinking, you remind me of somebody, you are somebody, and he is named the same character. I mean,
well, we can talk about it.
Yeah,
we're gonna be spoiling the hell out of this game.
That
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna be spoiling the hell out of this game throughout the episode, but I want to save the end game stuff for the end of the talk. But you're right. Byakuya has returned, but he does not look anything like the Byakuya from Danganronpa 1. He's grossly overweight and he's nice to people, which are two very non-Byakuya things. And also the character of Nagito has the same voice actor as Makoto, the main character from the first game. Nagito's not the main character of Danganronpa 2. There's a different milquetoast protagonist named Hajime, but in both Japanese and English, Nagito has the same voice actor as Makoto. And Nagito Komaeda is a jumbled up version of Makoto Naegi. So they're deliberately playing those, comparing those two characters as different versions of the ultimate lucky student. Because Nagito is the ultimate lucky student. Every character in this game is the ultimate something high school student, except for Hajime, who we're uncertain of what it is. Right?
Yeah, Hajime's talent is unknown at the start of the game.
Right. I'm struggling to remember this because I played this game over a year ago and didn't replay it for this episode. This is a special one-off episode just because we want to talk about the sequel.
Yeah.
And the nature of Hajime's story it plays into that end game we're trying to avoid for now.
Right.
But our new ultimate lucky student is a absolute subversion of Makoto.
Oh,
he is. Maybe
the most unsettling
He's
character for a while. Yeah,
Nagito is completely bonkers. He's my second favorite character in the game. And we'll talk about our favorites later, but he uses his luck almost as a weapon. He's so stupidly lucky that he deliberately does things he shouldn't be able to do and succeeds anyway, and wants to subvert the game just to see what happens. Like he withholds evidence from you in the first case. He's not the killer or the victim in the first case, but he withholds it from you, and the whole team gets so mad at him that they lock him up in a cabin. Which seems slightly more reasonable than some of the actions in this game.
And he's constantly prattling off the hope and despair lines that we heard coming out of Junko.
Just gets a kick out.
Junko is the main antagonist of the first game, and she's obsessed with despair and sending people to despair. But ultimately, the hope held by the main characters of the first game are able to overcome her, and Junko dies at the end of the first game in a very brutal execution scene.
Which we will get into that.
Yes, Junko will come up later, but. But how about that first case? One thing that I think makes Danganronpa 2 feel a little different from Danganronpa 1 is that in a way it's more of the same, and which is fine for a sequel. Sometimes in a video game sequel you want to go through some of the same gameplay loops and feel some of the same feelings as you did in the previous game. That's reasonable. But I think that Danganronpa 2 is overall more the cases are more convoluted, because in
that's fair.
In the first case in Danganronpa 1, it's like, they switch the names in the doors, and there's a difference between boys' rooms and girls' rooms, and it's not very challenging at all. But I thought that in the first case of Danganronpa 2, there's a dark room. A guy uses a trap door and stabs someone through the floorboards, and it's completely twisty, and each case is, I think, more challenging than the last. And the last two cases, the one that's the one in the pastel towers and the one that's in the sort of the industrial area, I thought were way harder and more batshit crazy than anything in Danganronpa 1. At least anything mechanically in any of the investigation trial stuff in Danganronpa 1.
They absolutely up the ante in terms of the complexity of the cases. It reminded me a lot of Virtue's Last Reward in that regard, because if you play VOR after playing 999, the puzzles in VOR, and this is partially personal preference, but I find the puzzles in VOR to be a lot more difficult than the ones in 999. And part of that, to me, is an assumption on the part of the developer that if you are coming into this after playing the first game, which you absolutely should, then you kind of know what you're getting in for, and they don't have to ease you in quite as much. in the case of Danganronpa, coming off of Danganronpa 1's completely crazy train ride, you know what the cards are on the table. You know about the tragedy. You know all of this stuff. Where can they take it from there? And they kind of have to. They do a really clever thing by introducing really similar elements from the beginning of the first game, as we established already, and kind of putting you off guard with that, and making the cases even crazier than before.
Yes, that's that is absolutely right, and another reasonable expectation for a sequel to a game with puzzle elements. And I don't mind them getting a little bit complicated, because I mean I'm a bit of a puzzle slut sometimes. I seek out puzzles. I do the Harvard puzzle hunt every year with a group of friends. And I like VLR more than 999 for a couple reasons, but the crazier puzzles being one of them. And I don't know. I really liked some of the Rube Goldberg nonsense going on in some of Danganronpa 2's puzzles, like like at the end of the second case, you're trying to figure the killer was Peiko, the samurai girl, and a lot of the solution to that was figuring out how she used a pulley system in a room and what's in the certain room, so she was able to exit without touching the ground or touching a door or something. And it's
I like
that,
Case 2 a lot.
And Case 2 also had that really unusual thing you had to play through a visual novel game at the before the case began, which is which was a parody of Twilight Syndrome, an old Spike Chunsoft game, and that sort of got a revenge plot ball rolling that had what's his name, Kazuya, I think, the who's
Kazuhiko.
Kazuhiko, yeah, the Yakuza kid, Fuyuhiko. That's him. Yeah, it had Fuyuhiko trying to kill the photographer girl. Mahiru. Yeah. Fuyuhiko wanted to kill Mahiru. Peiko didn't want him to be put at risk, so she killed Mahiru instead, and then they covered for each other in the trial, which made it a little bit harder to figure out that either of them had done it. And that's just the second case.
In case you can't tell, dear listeners, we are there is quite a large ensemble cast in this game once again, and we're having a bit of trouble remembering some of them.
Yeah, that's 16 Japanese teenagers with names that I don't have the easiest time remembering, since I played this game over a year ago. But when you're in it, it's easy to tell the difference between these characters, because they're all so cartoony and exaggerated and distinct.
And that being said, at first, I didn't think I would like this cast as much as the cast from the first one. But as you get to know them, I think they all have very distinct personalities, and I think they're all really interesting characters in their own right. Even the ones you don't think you're going to like, they end up having.
Definitely agree. I think I would say I still overall prefer the cast of the first game, but I would say that there are a select few of this cast, like Nagito, for the Yakuza, the Ultimate Yakuza. Some of the other characters, Fuyuhiko. They've got some real interesting picks, and there are a lot more subverting cast in this game, I would say. There's definitely a couple of individuals who shine amongst the kind of group. I would say story-wise, 2 is better than 1, but that's because they can just go all out, basically. They're just like, how can we amp up the tragedy? Like, they do a good job of that, which we'll get to.
We can talk about that now, because we talked about that a little bit last year in the previous episodes. How they like in the in the case between the student council president and the and the biker kid, how they become best friends, and then you have to execute the biker kid. And that makes you feel more for both of them. They go totally ham in Danganronpa 2 for that. They'll get you attached to pairs of characters, then they'll murder half of the pair. And the first time that happens is probably with Fuyuhiko and Peiko, because you get sort of you start to appreciate them both when you see that that they're how close they are, and how they're trying to protect each other in this case, and then you have to execute Peiko, and that happens a couple more times. Should we talk? Should we talk about that now, you think?
I think Peko and Fuyuhiko I thought was incredibly effective. It also underscales a bit that I don't know. Did any of us really care that Teru died?
No.
Like they tried.
He's the for the listeners. He's the killer in the first case, and he's the ultimate chef or something. And yeah, no one gives a damn about Teru.
Sympathetic, but it was so last minute. It was like I thought Type Kubo was writing this. Like,
oh wow.
The villain's about to die. Concoct tragic backstory.
Yeah, really. I mean, it doesn't help that they spend the entire first section of the game showing him off as some disgusting pervert, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's fine. He's fine. I really don't care.
And then his shtick during the case one I don't think was the game putting its best foot forward.
I think I thought that Case 3 is probably my favorite, and Case 4 is interesting, but went on a little too long.
Dude, I have to argue with you on that. I hated it.
Yeah, I did. Case 4
hated that one.
Case 3 is my least favorite, and I would probably say that Case 4 is that one with the houses.
It's the pastel houses that just went on too long.
I think the middle phase went on a bit too long, but 4 is among my favourites of the game, just because of the impact of it, I suppose.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think the best part of the game is sort of the finale, sort of case 5 going into the end game is what blew my mind and is what I remember the most clearly about Danganronpa 2. But I liked Case 3 because I don't know, because it was convoluted, because there's 2 murder victims in that one, and one of them was an accidental victim, and it used a pretty interesting staging twist that made it hard to guess who the killer was unless you picked up from context clues.
Yeah, I was annoyed with it because they introduced an element. What was it that those diseases that people were coming down with, and I figured that that was going to play into the case somehow, and it didn't.
Right.
So, I mean, I get that it's a red herring, but...
Yeah, for the listeners, a bunch of characters fall ill during Case 3, so they relocate to a hospital, and the murder takes place in a stage area that has the hospital nearby, and it's real crazy. It's the killer is the nurse girl Mikan, and she is killing Ibuki, the rock star girl, with an elaborate hanging system, and then a different character, what's her name, Hiyoko, stumbles in on her staging the murder. So Mikan kills Hiyoko and hides her behind some boxes or something, and then she runs back to the hospital and stages a video that looks like Ibuki hanging herself and sends that to everyone. So everyone's trying, but then so people are really confused until Hajime realizes that that video couldn't have taken place on the stage, and I liked the mechanics of that case and the trial, but I agree, it doesn't have the emotional impact of what happened in Case 4 or 5, because Case 4, I was so sad by the end of that because I love Gundam and Sonya.
Yeah.
Oh, that hit so hard. That hit so hard, especially.
And they were setting that up the whole game, because Gundam and Sonya started hanging out in Case 1.
Yeah, I know. I picked up little hints from it. It didn't. I mean, Kazuichi had obviously been trying to get to her, and he was getting a bit annoying. So
Kazuichi's annoying. Why couldn't they killed him instead of Gundam?
He's the what was the fortune teller guy from Danganronpa 1? Was that
Nobuhiro?
Oh, whatever. He's this game's equivalent. He's the butt monkey.
He is the equivalent. But Chapter 4, because as well, you think...
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's Yasuhiro, not Nobuhiro, is the fortune telling guy. But I agree. I agree that those two characters are similar. Go ahead. Sorry, Alana.
Definitely. No, it's fine. Because Chapter 4 is a bit of a shock, because obviously at the end of Chapter 3, if you take a break between 3 and 4, you are left with the cliffhanger that Nekomaru is dead. And so he comes back as a robot. I believe I'm getting the right chapter end, but he's Mechamaru, they call him.
Yes.
Akane is like obsessed with him at this point and is so delighted.
Akane is the super athlete. Nekomaru is a super athlete manager, and they train together often through the whole game.
I love their relationship as well. But yeah, then Gundam comes up with this kind of elaborate plan that if he's gonna get everybody out of these towers, the most elaborate way to do it is to kill the person who's not human. And it's just heavy because he spends the whole case pretending that he didn't do it. I do like the way he does it, though, because he uses his wonderful little pet hamsters to press the button and put him to sleep.
Okay, there's so much going. There's so much going on in your description, like pet hamsters and killing a robot. It's
Gundam is absolutely the greatest.
Yeah, Case 4 is so bonkers because
really.
not Nekomaru, Monokuma locks everyone in these bizarre buildings. One of them is pink and one of them is green, and says, "Okay, you're locked in here with no food until someone dies." So everyone's like hand wringing over what to do, and Gundam's like, "We can't live like this anymore." So he basically challenges Nekomaru or Mechamaru to a duel. And Gundam wins by turning off Mechamaru's power button with one of his pet hamsters, and then raising him up with another elaborate pulley system to the top of the building and dropping him to his death.
Yeah, it was really rather fantastic case. I really liked it, but I do think it does go on a little bit too long. But
the investigation in that case is so long.
Yeah, it felt like forever, but I think maybe what the standout is obviously the end trial and the way that it's all done, but also the secret room that you have to go through in order to find out the secret of the tower, and I loved that bit. I think there was too much fluff either side of it, but
the mini Zero Escape puzzle.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not. I don't think that's an accident that they had a Zero Escape puzzle in Danganronpa 2, because I mean,
it's totally not.
Yeah, they're both Spike Chunsoft. And I think it was added for the Vita version, because I mean, Danganronpa 1 and 2 were both originally PSP games, and Spike and Chunsoft didn't merge until after those PSP games, but before these Vita games. So I think that might be a newer gameplay segment. You're also briefly playing as Nagito during that.
You are, and I really, really like that, trying to figure out the secret of the entire building. It was a really nice touch in the middle. It was a bit of a loop. It threw you for a loop, because you get used to one chapter and then they suddenly throw you for left field and go, here we go, we're going to add this bit, we're going to do this bit, which I think Chapter 4 does really effectively, but I do agree that there's probably a bit too much fluff either side, because you've got the swapping between the houses and the going to bed and doing this and, I'm really hungry and, oh, look, Nagito's appeared out of nowhere. And then you do that whole not flashback sequence, but I think Nagito appearing in front of everybody is before doing the room, which is why he appears in front of everybody. It's non-linear in parts, I believe. I might be making that up, but I like how overly complex Chapter 4 is. Without being too silly, I feel like Chapter 3, for me, felt like, even though this is a ridiculous scenario, it felt like the most unbelievable murder at all, out of all of them, and I just could not get invested at all. Probably because I hated Hiyoko as well, the little girl.
Yeah.
It didn't help. She's
a little annoying.
Yeah, she was a real, nasty piece of work sometimes, but...
That's the one where they tried to humanize her a bit more, but it just kind of stopped.
Just like Teru, maybe 20 minutes before she dies, she gets a couple lines of dialogue that make her a little bit less unlikable, but it wasn't enough for Hiyoko. She was just annoying.
We've gotten this far without mentioning Chiaki, who is absolutely the greatest person.
Chiaki's probably my favorite. Yeah, she's my favorite character in the game.
She's the best. I love her.
Yeah, I really love Chiaki.
She's the narcoleptic gamer girl. She can fall asleep on a dime. And also my headcanon ship with Hajime right now. So.
Yeah, she and Hajime get. It's not very explicit, and they're not even as close as the main characters of the first game, Makoto and Kyoko. But I mean, Chiaki is really likable. She does some gamer style jokes and tropes in there, but nothing that obnoxious. Like she didn't speak in memes like a certain Persona 5 character, but she's just really likable and is always trying to guide the team along the path of not murder. Along the path of not murder.
Futaba's best girl. You're like, I can feel it coming off of Peter. Like,
Futaba's a good... Okay, alright, Persona 5 break for a second. Futaba's a good character. I just think they go a little overboard with her language sometimes. And but I don't dislike her. I think she's a very good character in a game that I like a lot. Peter, I can just feel Peter seething across the mic.
At least we're not talking about Kingdom Hearts.
All right, yeah.
Oh, fine. Oh no, see,
no, it's fine. We only talk about good games on this podcast anyway. All right, but so yeah, Chiaki's a great character, and I was a little heartbroken when she became the victim of Case 5.
Yeah, I think I expected it though. She seemed
Wait, I'm sorry, not the victim, the quote-unquote killer.
Yeah, she's definitely... Unfortunately, this was the spoiler I read. Because I found out... Yeah, this was the one spoiler I read. Only that she was the murderer, or murderer in inverted commas. But, yeah, I mean, it didn't affect too much because there's so much more going on with her anyway. And I think I probably would have figured out that something wasn't right with Chiaki because she became essentially not the equivalent of the other computer nerd who was amazing in Danganronpa 1, but she didn't know too much, but she just, like, there was something about her that felt, like, switched on that didn't about any other character in the last game, and I just thought something's going to happen to her, and it just happened to be that she was the quote-unquote murderer, but also that she was working for the Future Foundation with Monami, so... Right. It kind of... Again, surprised me that she was going that far. That,
Right. So to clarify a little bit, and please,
I know we just keep jumping into things.
Yeah,
and not
but please,
clarifying.
No. It's right. I need to clarify this for my benefit, not for the listener benefit, because sometimes the story in this game gets convoluted. So please jump in and correct me if I miss a detail. Around Case 4 or between Case 4 and 5, they figure out, okay, someone in here has to be working for the masterminds. Like, there's one of us is a double agent or knows something that they aren't telling, but they're not sure who. And Nagito. And Nagito's really bothered that he doesn't know who.
Yeah, so then, like, most of the game is spent building up the fact that the Future Foundation are the bad people.
Right.
And that they
are the bad guys who locked them on the island.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So Nagito figures out one of us has to be with the Future Foundation, but he doesn't know who. So he's going to use his crazy luck and his completely insane personality to figure out who it is by planting a bunch of they were like water balloons but filled with a fire extinguishing solution.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, like some kind of fire extinguishers that were, in sealed packets that you throw at a fire like a miniature bomb to put out the fire. Then he deliberately started a fire and placed himself in a crazy apparatus with pulleys again. So many pulleys in this game, so that he would.
Let's care for what he really did there. He basically crucified himself to the floor.
Yeah. Yes. Whatever. So he arranged it for himself to be murdered by a complicated apparatus, but also by replacing one of those fire extinguisher bombs with poison. So when the other 4 or maybe 5 surviving students all threw bombs at the same time, the murderer would be the one that threw the poison one by accident. And he so he would die from the poison, and then when his body relaxed, the pulley with all the weapons and stuff would stab his body. So it looked like he died from stabbing, looked like he might have died from fire, but really it was dying by poison from a random character among the people stopping the fire, which is bonkers and seems impossible. But then you remember his plan was to use his luck so that the double agent would be the person to throw the poison bomb, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, but it's one of those things where it's like only Nagito could have pulled something like that off because of his ridiculous his talents, but also like just the lengths she goes to create an unwinnable scenario.
Yeah, jeez.
Insane.
It's brilliant. And like they even point out like that he has like self-inflicted wounds all over his body, in order to sell the illusion. The fact that he was screaming against his gag while he stabbed himself.
It's crazy.
Like, it's just Nagi. That is when Nagito is absolutely insane. But it's I can't tell enough how much I love that case.
So he's so warped, isn't he?
He's so warped. He's so obsessed with seeing despair everywhere and hope triumph over despair. He's a little similar to Junko, but he's less obsessed with despair and more obsessed with seeing all of its machinations. It's crazy. But I was really sad when I realized that I would have to execute poor Chiaki.
Yeah. She was her and Gundam, having two characters that you loved a lot back to back was really hard. It was just almost like the game was like not expressing, but teaching its own virtues. So it was like Nakito was making you feel despair as well. And by the end of Case 5, I was just feeling really heavy, and I just thought, oh my god, there's the case of the book, which Nakito gets as a prize for finding the secret to the Double Towers in Chapter 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got to figure out the missing student and where the main character Hajime was in the book.
Right.
And then there was everything else to come, and it was just like 5 and 6 were pure onslaughts of everything. Like, whew. Yeah.
And I guess Peko, Gundam, and Chiaki all fall under that category of a character that we really like because of their connections to other characters dying.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that making the death feel worse. But it was a little bit different for the nurse girl, Mikan, in the third case, because the illness that several characters contracted basically made her go crazy and want to murder someone for reasons unclear at first.
Yeah. Exactly.
So and also she didn't have she hit on Hajime a little bit, but she didn't really have a connection to another character that you felt like those other three I mentioned.
Yeah,
like, Mikan was at least likable, but
yeah,
I liked Mikan. I managed to get her up to max like a relationship before I
right. Oh, right. Yeah, Danganronpa has social links. I forgot almost.
Exactly. Yeah. So I did like her character a lot, and I really didn't like what they did with her character in that chapter. But we've covered that.
Although it does provide, one thing I do appreciate about Case 3, at least the resolution of it, is it's good foreshadowing for the twist regarding the class.
Yeah, and then the disease that a couple of them suffered is that fits into the grander explanation of what's going on in a way that I thought was interesting. But I liked Case 3 more for more for its convoluted, murder and not for Mikan necessarily.
Yeah, definitely.
Plus, it was nice to have, Hiyoko dead. That's a positive.
You know, it's funny. There isn't a single character in Danganronpa 2 that I hated quite as much as, what's-his-face from Hifumi from the first game.
Oh, yeah, the overweight, the heavyset Dojin writer from the first game, yeah.
Yeah, he was the only character in this of the main cast, I should say, that I found completely unlikable.
One out of 32 is not bad.
Yeah, at least Danganronpa 2, even the least likable characters, you kind of feel bad for when they die.
Yeah, and they get rid of him too quickly for you to kind of get really fed up with his antics, I think. So they probably did the right thing by making him the killer in the first case. Because I don't think I'd have been able to tolerate him for another chapter like Hifumi. Exactly like Hifumi.
I actually liked how they used Hifumi in the case where he dies in the first game. Yeah, having him having him as a smokescreen for the real killer was, I think, interesting. Yeah, but he was completely annoying as a character, and I was glad to see him go. I just get weird about the puzzle mechanics and murder mechanics of these stories. I read a lot of murder mysteries on my own. I love Christie and even Grafton sometimes. So whenever I see a really convoluted, imaginative murder in one of these games, I don't know. That resonates with me. I just love murdering Japanese teenagers, guys.
Well, we have that on air now. It is in posterity for all time.
Oh, great.
And we're absolutely not going to edit that out.
Okay, maybe this will be that'll cause me problems if I try to travel to Japan in the future. But for now, I don't think they can convict me without evidence.
You get stopped at customs by someone in a Monokuma cosplay being like, "So, Sollosi, we have a proposition for you."
Oh, interesting. You know what? I don't need a reward. No, absolutely not. I'll do this for free.
Oh boy, there I go killing again.
Oh, rats. I just can't stop killing Japanese teenagers. Man, it's a problem.
Are we ready to talk about the absolute glitch in the Matrix, complete bonkers nuttiness that happens at the end of the game?
I think I am if you are.
Thinking about this case makes my head hurt. That's so clever, though.
Yeah, it's really kind of hard because the way you can kind of start to see it coming. Like, literally, the game will start randomly glitching out on you, and there'll be errors, and you'll get little code snippets going across the screen. So the fact that the entire island, Jabberwock Island, is a computer simulation is you can kind of see it coming as it's going. So I really like the gradual reveal and just this descent into how it all plays out. It's really well.
And
there's two parts to it as well, because before it, you're given, I think, you have the prologue or epilogue or something, and you have this bit on what you assume and is definitely a boat between the two chapters, and
right.
You're just like, what is going on? So you've got two characters, you've got Nagito and one other character that you can't see because you're from their perspective, talking to each other on a boat, and that just completely spaced me out.
Yeah, and Nagito,
waking up in the school.
And Nagito has a woman's hand with painted fingernails.
Oh, that's
grafted onto his arm.
Yeah, and if you think back to the very prologue of the game, what I thought was a dream sequence the first time I played, it shows the main character Hajime walking through a series of doors that are, a little matrixy in how the background seems digitized, and it doesn't seem like a real door.
Yeah.
But really, that's him entering the simulation, because the island is not a real island. They're all asleep and attached to a computer simulation as a form of rehabilitation, right?
A rehabilitation, because, as it turns out, the entire class were they're known as the Remnants of Despair, and they were essentially a terrorist group working for Junko.
They were Junko's followers, and I think they were a class at the Hope's Peak Academy a year or two ahead of Makoto the first game's class, I think.
I believe so.
So the first team in the first game, Makoto is and those guys are first years, and this class are a year or two older than they are, and they're Junko's followers, and each of them is in this island that's supposed to be a positive place where they can remember who they were before Junko turned them, but Junko. A viral version of Monokuma carrying Junko's consciousness enters the system and starts the killing game. And the plan is... okay, the plan I still don't 100% get, so again, correct me if I'm messing up. The plan is, when they graduate and leave the simulation, all of the ones that were alive at the end will remember who they were and remember what happened in the simulation, but the 10 or so who were killed during the simulation will wake up with Junko's consciousness, and she'll be alive with however many 10 or 11 versions of herself again.
Yeah, that's right. Jesus.
And it entered that way because Hajime was secretly Junko's #1 top agent, and he snuck a USB onto the boat and planted Junko in the computer sim.
Yeah.
Oh my.
And then and then you have the two the Future Foundation. They've been playing you against the Future Foundation for the entire game.
Yeah,
Turns out they're the good guys. They're the anti-despair people, and they have the characters from the first game.
Yeah, the Future Foundation are Makoto and Byakuya and Kyoko from the first game, trying to rehabilitate the former terrorist cell instead of execute them.
Yeah. And they're mostly against the rest of the Future Foundation's wizards because they believe that they are not happy. I think Makoto has to do a lot of convincing initially, and then everybody else kind of, well, the other two characters buy into it, and the rest of them are a bit off. But chapter 6 is really deep, and I think Hajime's side bit really throws me off because he's initially, you find out a couple of chapters before, you find out he's a reserve student, and you find out basically there's the main classes of Hope's Peak Academy, and again, I may have this wrong, and then you've got the reserve classes, which were basically people that entered like normal, or they weren't picked, basically.
Yeah,
so,
I think the main class of Hope's Peak are the ultimate students, which we've met 32 of them or so over the course of these two games, but they also have a reserve class of students that have to get in there normally and pay, or their parents pay like a private school, just because there's not enough, just so the school can sustain itself. And Hajime was a reserve class student, but then he was experimented on to become the most talented student of all time. Or something, and so the so the version of Hajime in the simulation is his old reserve student Milk Toast self. I just like the word Milk Toast.
Yeah, it's a good description.
Yeah, it's a great word. But the version that you see on the boat, with long wild hair and in a suit, and I think you see him in you see this version of Hajime in one of the side games too, is this ultimate talented, like super smart, super athletic, super student who is Junko's #1 agent.
The ultimate hope, who is both Hajime and Izuru Kamakura, who is the version.
Yeah, he was the epithet for the experimented on Hajime.
That's right, yeah. Oh, man. I remember seeing... I think Izuru Kamakura is quite important in the anime of Danganronpa 3 as well. I think he pops up a few times in there. What a messed up situation to be in. What the hell? Like, recapping over it with everybody is... Yeah, Izuru Kamakura is like almost as creepy as Nagito because of how kind of, I don't know, plain face they play. And
Hajime, they're both creepy, but for different reasons.
Yeah, and Hajime plays
when you get into, they get into briefly what the Remnants of Despair were doing, or what they were like after Junko died, because, and I need to reference this, and this could be a quirk of the localization or just how it's handled, but we mentioned earlier, Nagito has grafted Junko's severed hand onto his own. Okay, so that's gross and creepy. Apparently, all of the Remnants of Despair had.
No, it's all. Sometimes it's implied, and sometimes it's shown more explicitly. But
well, the thing is, what I'm getting to is like when they start describing, like they would put body parts into them. Like it's implied Fuyuhiko's eye patch. It's because he put an eye in there.
It's because he replaced his eye with one of Junko's. It's implied that Akane was starving herself, which is ironic because she's eating nonstop in the simulation.
And what I think it's implied Kazuichi, I'm pretty sure, was trying to impregnate Junko's corpse.
Yeah. This is the stuff on the phone, wasn't it?
Yeah, and also Sonia may have murdered her parents.
And I wanna draw attention to the necrophilia bit because Junko.
you just said the words. I want to draw attention to the necrophilia.
Yeah.
On a podcast. Peter, you and I are both getting in trouble.
Sure that Japan never lets us do something.
Yeah. So you two, like, before we got to this bit, you were both saying it's the phone bit, and I thought, but none of them have got any phones. And then the phone came up, and all this stuff happened.
Yeah.
And I think I had to put the Vita down for a bit because I was like, they went there. They went so far with it and everything. It's so creepy because
featureless pile of gore by the end of Danganronpa 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she's just like annihilated by pile drivers and baseball pitching machines and motorcycles and burning fire trucks and all kinds of nonsense. So she should not be a recognizable corpse. But the Remnants of Despair, did all kinds of awful things to her corpse because they were feeling so much despair for losing their leader, I guess. And then they all get kidnapped by Makoto's faction within the Future Foundation and attempt to be rehabilitated thanks to their AI. Oh shoot, what was the AI in Danganronpa 1?
Chihiro?
Yeah. Didn't they give a different name to Chihiro's AI version?
Alter Ego.
Alter Ego. Yeah,
Alter Ego.
Yeah, that's
sorry,
that's the name I was trying to remember. They have Alter Ego running the simulation, but. We were talking about the cell phone, which is which I think I hinted to both of you before you started, or when you both started playing Danganronpa 2. Oh, wait for the cell phone, because the during the final trial segment, the virus version of Junko is basically your opponent, and she's represented on screen by a giant version of Junko slamming down an enormous. Girly, bedazzled cell phone. Excuse me.
Amazing.
Bedazzled cell phone with a video version of Junko on the cell phone screen. And it is hilarious and absurd and kind of dark and intimidating and just an amazing visual choice.
Well, that's
ridiculous.
Fetish.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's crazy, especially I did not expect Junko to come back. Even as a virus, they brought her back in the biggest way possible. I loved Junko because she was my favorite character from the first game.
She's a very memorable villain. Mm-hmm.
She's memorable.
I was really glad to see her come back, yeah.
Yeah, really. I'm really glad that she...
But now that they've brought her back in these ways, and they brought her back for the prequel version of the anime, and in the Gaiden chapter, which takes place between Danganronpa 1 and 2. I'm slightly terrified that they're going to find another complete nonsense way to bring her back for the third game.
I bet she will.
I've avoided Danganronpa V3 spoilers, but I'm thinking to myself simultaneously, there's no way they can bring her back, and also they're going to bring her back. It could go either direction.
Sherlock, I
don't trust anything. I don't trust that this game, the sequel, is not related in any way. I don't trust any of it. But I also don't trust the internet, so I'm not.
I have heard that the sequel is good. It's it has the highest.
Oh, yeah.
It has the highest Famitsu rating of any of the Danganronpa games, and the buzz I've heard from forums and otherwise from the Japanese version is all very positive, and that's extremely encouraging. But yeah. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking they're going to bring back Junko somehow. I have no idea how, but they're going to bring her back somehow.
Yeah, I mean, like you said before the podcast, there's no game. I'm not particularly fussy about spoilers as long as I don't know absolutely every detail. Danganronpa bucks the trend. I hate spoilers for Danganronpa, and I did like I said, I knew about Chiaki being the killer, inverted commas, because Nagito's messed up. But nothing else. I didn't know anything else, so everything else came as a big surprise. And there's not many games that make me think as much as Danganronpa 2 did, because I had to go away and think about it and piece everything together from the first game and the second game.
And also, one minor thing that I think alluded to at the beginning, the fevers that they all start having around Case 3 are glitches in the simulation, and because they all start taking on unusual behaviors, or the sick characters do, and that's because the computer sim is messed up, and Mikan's disease, which her body felt hotter. Like temperature hotter as a result of it, but also she reverted to her despair-obsessed personality and decided to kill people in the name of Junko. was why she was acting so crazy during her trial. So they tied a lot of stuff in surprisingly well. Sorry, Peter.
No, it's fine. Sorry, I wasn't where I thought you were going with that. I thought you were going to mention that Chiaki was an AI too.
Right. Oh, well, I wasn't going there yet, but Chiaki is an AI. She was not one of the students that was part of the Remnants of Despair, and she was placed in that group in order to guide them towards hope and sort of help the group along. And she was working with Monami from the beginning. And So yeah, man, it's completely crazy, and eventually Hope does win out, and the ending is a little ambiguous. It shows I think they indicate that Hajime and the surviving students awake from their comas, or awake from the simulation, and the students that died in the simulation are in comas. And they're and I think like the idea is Hajime and the others are going to wait and try to help their friends wake up.
Yeah. So I think the what's put to them is that they can save all their friends, but they'll basically go back to the way they were, which means they'll be the remnants of despair, or they can fight against it. They'll survive, but they'll be on a course for rehabilitation in the real world. I think, or at least the people who survive, if they go the right way, they'll be on the course for recovery, basically.
So yeah, it's a little ambiguous, but mostly mostly positive. There's a twinge of hope in there. Not unlike the very ending of the first game. But I want to move ahead a little bit and talk about the Danganronpa 3 anime, which we've all seen parts of, maybe not all of, because it goes.
I've seen none of it.
Yeah, okay, it goes interesting places. Now, briefly, for I guess listeners' benefit and maybe also Alana's benefit, there is a Danganronpa 3 anime that is a sequel to Danganronpa 1 and 2, and not connected to Danganronpa V3 that comes out in English in a few months. It is in two halves. One half is set after Danganronpa 2 and is about a third killing game, with Makoto and Kyoko and a couple other students from the first game, plus new characters. And the other half of it is a prequel that is about the Danganronpa 2 cast and how Junko turned them all to despair.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting, and one of the main characters of that prequel half is Chiaki. She was a real person with that gamer personality and a very likable character in general. And part of what drew them all into despair, of what drew all those students into despair, is what happened to Chiaki. So, yeah,
right.
they really tie it all together in a fascinating way with that sequel anime. I recommend it's dark and difficult to watch sometimes, but I recommend it if you like Danganronpa 1 and 2.
Yeah, I did take it an episode at a time because I needed to breathe in between. It's like, oh god.
Yeah,
the first episode in particular even is just like because you see everyone in their full remnant of despair mode, and it's actually really depressing.
Yeah,
jeez.
It's
because like you see like freaking Mikan with like someone strapped to a table, and she's bringing out like a giant syringe, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's dark and crazy and weird, and I don't.
Heavy.
Yeah, I haven't finished it yet, but I know that the last episode is called Episode of Hope or something, and is some form of epilogue. I don't know exactly what happens, but it's and the two different halves of it are called the Future Arc and the Despair Arc. But this whole package of games, Danganronpa 1 and 2 and the anime and the upcoming game V3, there's no other video games or visual novels like it. It's hyper stylized, hyper exaggerated battle royale, very anime centric, tropey character designs that are, but the plot is so insane and the characters are well written enough that you look beyond the tropes and like them. I'm very attached to this series, and I don't know what plans they have beyond Danganronpa V3, but I'm really thirsty for that game, and I don't know if my thirst will be totally quenched by it. I might want yet more afterwards. I got no guarantees on that front.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's an excellent series. Really looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
And I know very little about Danganronpa V3. I have seen pictures of the cast, sort of like basically just the 16 characters and what they are each the ultimate of. And I have some, just by looking at them and by the name V3, I have some theories about them that may or may not be related to Japanese superheroes. But
yeah.
Yeah, really.
But I'm really excited for that game. It's one of my most it would have been my most anticipated game of 2017 if it wasn't for Persona 5.
Well, it is now.
Yeah, it's my most anticipated game of the remainder of 2017, and it comes out
the second half of the year.
Yeah, and it comes out within a couple of weeks of East 8, which is another game I love, or I will love.
September, end of September.
September's going to be a wild month.
Yeah, my birthday present's going to be a game about killing school kids, and I'm fine with it.
That's all of us. We are now on a blacklist somewhere.
Yeah, welcome to the Japanese travel ban list, Alana.
I'm pretty sure I'm on. I think I'm pretty sure I'm on a blacklist for something else as well. Anyway, for hating something that somebody else likes, whatever.
Well, I am too, but I mean, nobody of influence likes Kingdom Hearts, so that's fine.
No.
Like,
Why did it have to
swear
go
to
back
God,
to that? But yeah,
I don't know if I hate that game as much as I love hating that game.
I think you love hating it. I think you love the attention.
That's probably it.
yeah.
But yeah, are we going to talk about favorite characters? Because I know we touched on all of. We've done like a whistle-stop tour of the game. So.
Yeah, we've talked about probably all of them. Did we skip anybody? Going through a list. We think we missed.
The twist with Fat Byakuya is kind of interesting.
Oh sure, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course,
like,
yeah.
Ultimate, copycat or whatever.
Yeah, ultimate imposter or copycat. Either of those is fine. So he's a character with an unknown real name, but who was impersonating Byakuya.
Yeah. So we didn't mention Mahiru, who is the ultimate photographer.
Right. She's the victim
standard.
In the second case.
That's right.
She died. Peko kills her because And you know, her backstory was, I didn't totally understand it because, like I mentioned, that there was a visual novel you play before the investigation of the second case. Like there's a Monokuma gives everyone this video game and they play it, and the video game reenacts events that happened a while ago, and you've learned later those events were the murder of Fuyuhiko's sister. And so Fuyuhiko plays the game and realizes that one of the other students there was part of the group that killed his sister, and realizes that it's Mahiru. So he is about to go kill Mahiru, but Peko, to defend Fuyuhiko, kills Mahiru before Fuyuhiko can go after her. I think. Right?
Yeah, that's how.
That's about right. I thought it was more that Mahiru was a witness to the crime, like she was culpable. But it wasn't.
There was like a group of girls, and I think they may have led his sister to suicide, or somehow were involved in his sister's death, but she was one of the people party to it. It's again, I don't remember it 100% clearly. But that's Mahiru's arc for you.
Yeah. So
I liked her when she was there.
Yeah, she was fine. She was a normal high school girl.
So I guess we have run through all the characters now. So, Alana, if you had to pick an overall favorite in the game, who would it be?
I'm gonna save one of them because I feel like, I'll say the Gundam's probably my favorite, but if we're gonna go on to another character, because I think everybody loves Gundam and we have spent a fair amount of time on him, it's a character I didn't expect to like at the beginning of the game, and we've already talked a little bit about his arc with Peko. So Fuyuhiko ended up being one of my favorite characters just because he goes through a hell of a development arc in the game. So he's and I remember Mike telling me this a couple of times, but originally the writers and developers wanted Fuyuhiko to be one of the victims, I believe, or the killers.
Yeah,
but definitely,
no. He was going to be the victim of Case 3, but then they decided that they wanted to spend more time with him, so they had Hiyoko be the witness that died instead of Fuyuhiko.
Yeah, and I think it works because Fuyuhiko has got a much more interesting arc overall. He's got quite a lot of ties into the story. I really like his character, and I thought I was going to hate him, and I love the fact that the whole thing was turned upside down, and by the end of it, Fuyuhiko is basically leading everything and is the one spurring you on, rather than you spend as Hajime, you spend so much time trying to get him to do stuff, and he's just like, no, I'm going to go for a walk, and will spleet at you and walk off and be the complete hard nut that he is. But
right, and at the beginning of the game, Fuyuhiko's kind of terrible. He rebuffs everyone, dreadful. He's a major suspect in the first and second murders just because he's so rude to everybody.
But even then, he's a lot to do with the second murder.
That's true,
He's so involved in it with Peko, and Fuyuhiko's relationship is awesome. Like the fact
It's very sweet. And
he's gone in with his bodyguard basically, and she literally does everything for him, and she had to pretend that she had nothing to do with him, and he finds it really hard, and it's really scary because at the end of the second case, I was convinced he was going to die because he was rushed off to hospital. And he spends the rest of the game with an eye patch, so...
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think as a means of apology to everyone, because he was so awful, he stabs himself in the eye? Or something?
No,
he does something and strains his stitches, doesn't he, I think? The eye was to do with the samurai death, wasn't it? The way that Peko died.
Yeah.
He went in and defended her.
That's what it was, right. Mm-hmm.
He splits his stitches doing something, I believe, or does it deliberately, and is rushed off again. But no, Fuyuhiko is like one of the game's best examples of a character. So like, I love Junko because she's really well written, Byakuya, Kyoko, but like Fuyuhiko is really well done. And the fact that I thought, I'm gonna hate him, and then ends up being second or third favorite character is kind of a marvel. So touche, and congratulations to making me like an asshole.
So Peter, do you, I think I know who this is going to be, but who's your overall favorite?
Jackie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie's the obvious pick for me, just because I think she's a lot of fun. She's favorite best. Hashtag best girl.
Right.
But more importantly, I think Nagito would be, if I had to pick a favorite character in terms of just how this character develops and how they just kind of, he's really fun to watch. He's just one of those guys who bounces around the periphery of the story, just causing absolute chaos everywhere he goes. His
weird obsessions with luck and despair and hope sort of like color the tone of the game and illustrate some of the themes of the game. And he is such an agent of chaos and like a complete foil to Makoto, the main character of the first game, the other ultimate lucky student. That he's, I think Nagito is one of like the defining characters of Danganronpa 2.
Yeah,
definitely.
He's absolutely delightful, even when you
He's my favorite character to hate, definitely. But I don't hate him because of what he's done. His mannerisms and everything, he just creeps me out. Like, I remember at the end of the first case where he started to twist and turn you away from the answer, and he's just like, I just want to see you fighting against despair, and you're just like, you are a creep.
And he has this this sort of wheezy laugh.
Oh, it's so weird.
That's really creepy. Yeah,
I would have loved to be in the recording booth when they had Bryce Papenbrook voices both Makoto and Nagito. I would have loved to see him doing that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Bryce Papenbrook, but this is his best role by a mile. Like, he's so atypical of like the milquetoast character, basically, and Nagito is not milquetoast, anything but.
Nope.
Good work, I'd say.
Well, I like Nagito and Chiaki and Fuyuhiko a lot, but I'm going to talk about a few characters that we've already went over a little bit. But Sonia and Gundam, I liked them. Yeah. I liked those two from the beginning. Sonia is a princess of a foreign nation and and sort of a very traditionally pretty girl who does not know social conventions that well and doesn't always understand things like idioms, which I guess means that she's not Japanese and her Japanese isn't good or something. But like seeing her and Gundam have this sort of natural friendship, and they start hanging out with each other more and more. And Kazuichi, what's his name? Kazuchika.
Kazuichi's right.
Yeah. Kazuichi keeps trying to hit on Sonia, and she keeps rebuffing him and hanging out with Gundam instead. And Gundam is a total weirdo who dresses like a ninja and speaks in like Saturday morning cartoon language, and has four pet hamsters that are extremely well trained and agile. And it's like these two characters who are likable and funny and interesting sort of have this sort of organic feeling relationships form, made me like them both so much through the whole game, because I'm a romantic and a sucker, I guess. And then and that made Gundam's execution hit so hard that it was it was the other than the ending, it was the most emotions I had felt during this game.
Yeah, definitely. firstly, his fourth Dark Davis of Destruction. I think we need to correct ourselves on that for calling them hamsters.
Are they?
I'm very sorry.
All right, the
Yeah.
four Dark
Very
Davis of
offended.
Destruction.
Yeah. Secondly, my favorite thing about Sonia is the fact, and I thought Sonia was going to be one of the killers at one point because she is obsessed with occult and crime stories. Like, oh my god, she is. You'll find her in the library and she's just digging up old things, just like, oh, I really like this murderer. He's really cool. And I'm just like, Sonia, don't kill people. Like, she was so innocent, but she just had this kind of fascination with the whole. I don't know. I think she's interested because she knows the Kuzuru clan, doesn't she? She knows the Mafia clan, I think, or
And she was also
had some history with them.
and she was familiar with Genocide Jack,
That's right.
the serial killer from Danganronpa 1. That's actually one of the characters.
Yeah, I was convinced she was going to be a killer. I'm so glad she wasn't. I'm so glad she survived.
And she approaches things like the occult and murders with just such innocent enthusiasm. It's like why are you so excited and have your eyes sparkling about talking about serial killers?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And she gets the Davis as well. So she's looking after the hamsters. The Davis.
Oh yeah, that's right. Before Gundam dies, he gives the Davis to her, and she tearfully accepts the role of keeping them again.
Yeah, Sonia was really great because I thought she was going to be like typically ditzy, and I just fell in love with her a little bit. And Gundam, as I mentioned, is a favourite just because he is so ridiculous.
And also, Gundam's title is the Ultimate Breeder, which sounds strange at first. I had to look this up. Breeding club is basically a common Japanese high school club where you look after things like hamsters or a rabbit hutch or something that the school keeps. And that happens. That's a normal occurrence in Japanese high school. So he's like the ultimate member of the breeding club and is super good at, keeping hamsters and rabbits.
Hamsters.
So I didn't quite understand the word ultimate breeder and had to do some research on my own. But that's who he is.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. God,
He's ridiculous, but I love him.
And
I loved him and Sonya
Only in
together.
Danganronpa does he make sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kazuichi is really the only weak link among the surviving students at the end.
Yep. Again, you were absolutely right. He's just like the guy Kazuhiro.
Yasuhiro.
Yasuhiro. Yeah.
We forgot your name twice in one
Man,
podcast.
I'm telling you, man. There's so many.
It's because he's so unforgettable and so irritating. Why would you bother to remember him?
I don't know. I don't always remember Japanese names very very easily. This is how my brain works, I guess. And there's so many of them in these games.
Yeah, when you've got a cast of Sonya, Akane, who is great. I love Akane.
She's fantastic.
Hajime.
Akane kind of reminds me of the. She reminds me both of the swimmer girl Aoi and Sakura, the martial artist from the first game.
She's exactly a cross between those two. Are they the only four that survived? So Kazuichi, Hajime, Akane,
Sonya, and
must be one.
No, Fuyuhiko. You're right. So those 5 survive.
Oh, of course, yeah. Fuyuhiko survives to the end as well.
So 5 out of.
Actually, you mentioned that Akane is like if Aoi and Sakura combined. You find the statue of Sakura in the Castle Towers, and she comments on it. And
right.
Yeah, she does.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
Nice to know.
This was a fun little detail. They know.
So we have talked about Danganronpa for a while, and thank you so much for doing this with me, guys. I really wanted to address the sequel after you two had played it, and I think we alluded to this a little bit, but as both of you were playing it, I was very excitedly messaging you separately, like, oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Oh, wait for the cell phone. All kinds of. I tried to do that with spoiling as little as possible, and I had a lot of fun following the two of you playing it and enjoying it. So thank you for that as well.
I loved it.
Over the past couple of months.
Danganronpa 3. The original Danganronpa was probably my second favourite game journal game of last year. Everyone knows what my first is. But Danganronpa 2 is, they're both of them as a couple game. Like, I'd put them both together. And because you can get them on the PS3 now, and everybody should go and play the PS3.
PS4.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You should go and buy the double pack if you've not played them, because they are the prime example of action. They're not action games, adventure games and visual novels. They are. I really struggle to play visual novels after this game because this has just kind of rewritten the rule book for me 40 times over, and is a fantastic example of how to write a really good story, do crazy plot twists that make sense, and not leave plot holes, and write good characters.
And you're absolutely right. And we should also mention that Danganronpa 1 and 2 are both also on PC.
They are.
And the PC version came out a little before the PS4 version, so it had been out on Vita for a while first, but now you can find it on PC or PS4, and I recommend playing... They are a hell of a double act, playing them back-to-back. So,
really good.
They're excellent, and I cannot wait for Danganronpa V3 in a couple months in September.
Yeah, we're gonna have we're gonna have to avoid each other for a while, or at least avoid talking about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to avoid spoilers, and the hard part will be me finishing it in 3 days or however long it takes, and then to avoid telling everyone else all about it.
Well, it's out in America a couple of days before it's out in Europe, so you'll have to, and I won't be getting it till my birthday, which is about a week after it's out.
I see.
Yeah, you'll have to keep real quiet for a while.
But I don't know if we'll record a podcast episode about it because it's very recent, and we try to only talk about games that are at least a couple of years old. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that game real hard. So, I think we're about done talking about Danganronpa for today. Thank you again for joining me on this podcast, and thank you, listeners, for listening to us on this podcast. My name is Mike Sollosi, and we are Retro Encounter. If you want to reach us, the best way to do so is via email on retro@rpgfan.com. You can also go onto the RPG Fan's Facebook page and comment on there, comment on the rpgfan.com boards, go to rpgfancom on Twitter, leave reviews on iTunes if you're listening to us via that venue. Don't know what else to talk about. So Twitters, sure. Peter, where can people find you on Twitter and the forums?
Twitter can find. You can find me on Twitter at I Have Fury, which is also my username on the boards.
And Alana.
So, as I said at the beginning, Diving Falcons on the boards, but if you want to tweet me, my name's at Alana Hagues, so please come talk to me.
And on Twitter, I am... What?
Don't spoil Danganronpa V3.
Oh god! Now that we've said that, everyone's going to spoil it to us on them.
Yeah, I'm going to get tweets September the 26th, oh, so this person dies. I'm like, no. It's
the murderer.
Block anyone.
The murderer is the ultimate stock car race driver, which I don't think it's actually one of the ultimates. But anyway, I am at The Real Monsoon on Twitter, and also at Evoker for Dogs on Twitter. But you probably are more interested in that first one. And I'm Monsoon on the forums.
That Twitter still makes me really happy.
Oh, Evoker for Dogs?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. We're all Koromaru fans here.
Oh, yeah.
What a good boy. Anyway, we always come back to dogs.
We really do. Hey, Peter, do you think we should record a Cats of RPGs podcast eventually? Do you think you'd be into that?
I'd be into that. I mean, we'd be talking about Morgana for 2 straight hours.
We'll think about that. We'll put that on the ideas board. We'll see. But anyway, listeners, all of you good boys and good girls out there, good night and good luck.
Danganronpa.